But these lakes, they're not all of our surface water resources. Certainly, we've got 3,000 miles of streams in Mecklenburg County that have year-round flow in them. And we have a major river drainage divide that runs through our county. 1/3 of the county drains into the Yadkin PD Basin. That also flows down into South Carolina and the Atlantic Ocean. 2/3 of the county, those to the west of that line, drain into the Catawba River Basin. And the reason we have so many miles of streams is because we're a headwater community. These streams drain from this divide through our county. Some of these streams are very narrow. You can almost step across them, and some of them range from 10 to 20 feet wide. And these streams take on a lot of different characteristics. This is a tributary of the Rocky River up in Davidson. It has a very rocky bottom. This is Mallard Creek over at the UNCC area. It has a very sandy, somewhat flat bottom. And then we've got some streams that have been unnaturally channelized. We don't do this anymore, but some of our urban streams were done this way. Other than as a drinking water supply, these surface water resources provide us with tremendous recreational opportunities. Duke Power estimates that every year there's about 10 million people that visit their lakes. And that's expected to increase about 11% per decade for about the next 40 years. The streams are also provide great recreational opportunities. As we become more urbanized here in Mecklenburg County, we remove the trees and the natural canopy. We leave the trees around our streams. We leave those naturally vegetated. We call it a buffer, and we put trails through them, and we call that a greenway. And folks sort of gravitate to these trails and walk on them and get a little bit of a green or natural environment in our urban setting. They're becoming very, very popular. Right now we've got about 33 miles of greenways to develop, and over the next 10 years we're projected to go up to about 150 miles. So this system is vitally important to our community, and certainly we want these creeks to be clean. The other thing that's important about our creeks is that, you know, we're all downstream of somebody, unless you're at the very top of the hill, which we are not. And we've got a lot of folks downstream of us that are drinking the water that maybe we're polluting. So we need to be very protective of the water for that reason as well. Here's Mecklenburg County. There's that major river drainage divide again, and our water drains from the Catawba River down there into South Carolina, into York County, where they've got a drinking water supply. Some of our water drains down into Union County and Monroe, and we've got some water that drains to the east over there in Cabarrus County. So we need to keep our waters clean so that those folks can enjoy it like we do here. And streams and lakes, the river here in Mecklenburg County has shaped our past. It's one, if you go back in the history of this community, it's almost amazing how we've been tied to these surface water resources. This is an area with abundant streams along the Catawba River. We've used and relied on those streams since we first settled here in the 1700s. They certainly sustain us today to the tune of 140 million gallons of water a day for 1 million folks, as well as they meet many of our other needs. And most certainly, as we come out of this drought, we see how these surface water resources are going to be priceless to us on into the foreseeable future. We cannot do without them. So the bottom line is we've got to protect them. And that's our job. That's what we do at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Stormwater Services, is protect and restore the quality and the usability of our surface water resources. We want to be able to swim in our lakes, and we want to be able to use our streams, and we want to be able to get our drinking water out of these lakes. So how do we achieve this goal? Well, it's really, in some ways, kind of simple. We try to find and eliminate what's polluting the water. And there are really two types of water pollution. And the first type is what we call a point source pollutant. And it's called that because it comes from a point or pipe like this. This is a 6-foot in diameter storm drain pipe. And you see that smaller 6-inch pipe coming from the top. We found this several years ago. We found an oil sheen at the downstream side of that 6-foot pipe. We traced it upstream about 300 or 400 yards. We came upon this pipe coming in the top. When we found the other end of that pipe, it was tied into the floor drains at an automotive repair facility, and that's antifreeze you see pouring out of there. So he was dumping oil, antifreeze, all his automotive waste products into his floor drain. It's running right straight to the creek. That's a point source discharge against the law. He was fined, and he ended up having to work with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Utilities to tie that into the sanitary sewer following pretreatment. We also get a lot of calls from folks telling us the creek behind their house is maybe black or red or green or white. So oftentimes when creeks become polluted, They are impacted by chemicals. This particular creek was polluted because it has sewer in it. So these are other examples of point source discharges coming from illegal dumping, or discharges coming from people straight piping stuff to our streams. And we find streams that look like this sometimes. It's a lot of suds in the creek. And this happened as a result of a carpet cleaning company dumping their wastewater into a storm drain. But this could have resulted from mobile washing activities that folks were discharging their wastewater to a storm drain or into a creek. All these situations are against local, state, and federal law. And what we do when we find them is we make sure that these sources of pollution are eliminated and water quality conditions are restored. Now, the second type of water pollution that we have is what we call non-point source pollutants. And folks sometimes have a hard time relating to this, but basically non-point source pollutants enter our streams when it rains. And this is the biggest source of pollution here in Mecklenburg County, and really in every urban area in this country it's the biggest source of pollution. Let's take, for example, a parking lot. You probably parked your car out here today. If you have a little oil leak in your car and it drips that oil onto the parking lot and it rains, that rainwater picks up that little bit of oil and carries it into a storm drain, a storm grate. This grate dumps right into a pipe, and that pipe runs right straight to the creek. There is no treatment. Also consider your tires on your automobile. You're riding down the road and your tires are wearing down. It deposits this fine gray powder on the side of the road, and when it rains that is washed into the creeks, and that's got zinc and copper and cadmium and a lot of other pollutants in it as well. And just think of lawn fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides, anything put on the ground when it rains is subject to being picked up by that rainwater, carried right into the storm drain grate and right straight to the creek. And if you're not an urban area, in your rural area, you have lots of trees and plants and things, and that's not such a big impact. But when you look at Charlotte and you consider all the roads and parking lots and rooftops and lawns, and you multiply that and consider the cumulative impact, that can be very, very huge. And it is a huge problem. Now this is taken right out here on College Street, right outside this building during a rainstorm. You can actually see the emulsified oil running down the storm drain gutter there right straight into the creek. And these are some of the pollutants. When we monitor water quality conditions, these are some of the pollutants that we find in stormwater in our creeks after a rain event. Now this is a very, very, very important thing to know right here. In Charlotte, Mecklenburg, we have two sets of pipes running through our community. One is called a storm sewer, and the grates, the storm drain grates in the curbs and the roads, the storm drain grates in the parking lots, all this stormwater runoff runs to these grates, runs into a pipe, and runs straight to the creek, as I illustrated in the previous picture. And then we got the sanitary sewer pipe, the second set of pipes. Now these pipes carry the wastewater, the sewage from our homes and our industries right straight to a wastewater treatment plant where the pollutants are treated, the water's treated, pollutants are removed, and then it's put back into the creek. Now the reason this is important is a lot of the northern communities, for example, New York City, these pipes are one and the same, and that's called a combined sewer. Ours is called a municipally separate sewer. And the distinction being anything that you put in that top grate up there, the storm sewer, is going to go straight to the creek. It's against the law, violation, fines could result. Anything you put into the sanitary sewer, that's regulated by Charlotte Mecklenburg Utilities, and Regina is going to talk a little bit about the ordinances pertaining to that. The top, that pipe up there, is regulated by Charlotte Mecklenburg Stormwater Services, which is my organization.